Hey gents, a little food for thought up in this piece. Now, like I just said in the last food for thought video, I learned this from Sesame Street, no less. Gentlemen, this is when TV had sense, made sense, and you were actually taught something on television. Well, anyway, there's two characters that were construction workers, and one, the tallest one, he couldn't speak, but his name was Biff. I don't know what he did because I can't remember. I was 10. So that was like 36 years ago. Please forgive me. Anyway, he had done something, and the Sesame Street character, the smaller one that can talk, had reprimanded him and told him, no. I guess the tall guy probably cut a corner. So he's being reprimanded. They said, no. So one thing leads to another. You do that today, who knows what you'll do tomorrow? And that stuck with me. Now, to me, this is a two-part thing. One, it applies to me. So the lesson I learned from that is to never cut corners, never cheat. Because if you take a day off or take a play off, because once you get comfortable with doing something once, you can go further and further, because one thing leads to another. You get comfortable doing it once, that's all it takes. The first time is the hardest part, the hardest time, and the hardest thing to do. And once you get over that, you've gone from innocence into the light. So you know what it is like to cross the line. So it gets easier every time. At the time I didn't know this, but I still did, like the gentleman said when he reprimanded Biff, that one thing leads to another. So that led to me living my life with strict military discipline. Now, as I got older, I realized that this applies to other people in their relationship with you. If you let people get away with one thing today, since one thing leads to another, tomorrow they're going to be comfortable with doing it again or even more. And that is always the case. Excuse me. And I've experienced that. People try you. And they try you with small little things. And if you pay attention, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. By the time you notice it, it is something big and glaring. But the person has been crossing the line with you a long time ago. You just didn't know it. Now, as of today, you can't get away with that because you know that one thing leads to another. So you can't allow people to get so comfortable with you that they walk in your house with their shoes on after the rain. And a perfect example of this was when Rick James walked into Eddie Murphy's house purposely with mud on his shoes to rub it in his sofa. Now, according to Charlie Murphy, him and Eddie Murphy beat the stuffing out of Rick James, which he had coming, which he deserved, and I would do no less. But Rick James did not get comfortable enough to do that with Eddie Murphy the day he did it. It started a long time ago, and if you know the story behind the relationship Rick James had with Eddie Murphy and Charlie Murphy, you would see Rick James led up to that. But of course, I shouldn't use Rick James as an example because he's a bad example. Because even after he got beat up by Charlie Murphy, he still came back and disrespect Eddie Murphy's house until he got beat up. And then he came back again. Like, he doesn't stop. So that's a bad example. But I use that because Rick James is an example of what happens when you don't deal with things just as it occurs. Because one thing leads to another. It started off with him insulting him with words, to him rubbing his feet and Eddie Murphy, his muddy feet in Eddie Murphy's seat, and so forth. So gentlemen, just make sure when one thing leads to another, becomes a part of your life, you apply it to yourself and you apply it to others. And remember, like I said before, you do not reward disrespect. I don't know if I told you about Young Boozy or Lil Boozy, who his brother was being rude and disrespectful. He put him on the first flight. The next day, they were in Hawaii, sent him right back to New Orleans. So he said, if you don't know how to act, you won't be doing it around me. But at any rate, gentlemen, just know this. One thing leads to another. It's food for thought. Every time I'm talking sense, it's food for thought, gentlemen. I guess I'm on the right track, because whenever I'm trying to drop sense, nonsense like that happens. Anyway, don't forget that, gentlemen. One thing leads to another, so govern yourself with discipline. One thing leads to another when it comes to people. Don't let them get away with disrespect. Deal with it right away. The sooner the better. Alright, gentlemen. Goodbye.